Juak man ka koro kaw mana kon koro bed mana ping koro ling mana ti koro chik mana iti jili juak kano. Bed mana ka koro kaw mana kon koro ling mana ti koro chik mana iti jili juak kano. Jawan yeso yeso. Adiera yeso en yeso. Adiera yeso en yeso. Adiera yeso en yeso. Hallelujah. Please be seated.
We are aware that a lot of material that are not approved get their way, especially to private schools. So I'm on record saying, and the media misrepresented it a bit, I think is an opportunity to clarify, that some of us have encyclopedias. Think about the name first, being used by learners at grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. These are not approved by the institute. Just about the name, that a child in grade 1 has a book called Encyclopedia. There are big chunks of material. 3 of them will be breaking the child's back. They are not approved. And I was talking to the PS yesterday. I told him I would be coming to meet you because I must ask my boss for permission. And we were asking ourselves, what do we do? And we made 2 decisions, which I want to take this opportunity to announce here. That the publishers who will go ahead to produce this encyclopedia for use in schools will not be eligible henceforth for tenders to supply government books. But we also went ahead and say, if we come to a school and we find you have material that is not approved, we will revisit your registration status. I think a circular is going to come to that effect. So please take that very seriously. Looking at the table, I saw a brochure that announces the availability of a lot of digital materials for use in schools. Luckily, that material says that leaflet says the materials have been approved by KICD. I hope that is the case. And please, we are pleading again. A lot of the digital materials and audiovisual materials that come to our space are not developed in Kenya. They may not be necessarily relevant to the competency-based curriculum. We also insist that they should be evaluated and approved. And this is for very important reasons. I'll only pick on one reason. One of the pillars of the competency-based curriculum is to ensure that we shall be producing an ethical learner. So the matter of values is extremely important. So it is primarily critical that we establish that those materials are consistent with the values we imbibe as a country and relevant to the curriculum. 8. How does the government determine the progress of the curriculum? The Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development does a monitoring and evaluation every year. In fact, this week we have had people out monitoring the implementation of grade 8. Now, we have had great successes when we still have some challenges. But let me say one thing before I get to identify a few successes. That the private schools in this country, let me use the word, have led the way in terms of implementation of the competency. A more serious clap than that. This, I am not afraid to say on record, that when you look at the data, when you go to observe the implementation of the competency-based curriculum, you can clearly see that a number of our private schools are just doing exactly what we expect, and a bit more. In terms of what, and that will underscore the successes I'm talking about. 1, private schools, you have led the way in terms of the infrastructure for CBC. For CBC, you have interpreted the fact that CBC is experiential and requires learners to have practical experiences. Private schools have run away even with the way learners sit. Of course, in your schools, learners don't sit like this. Occasionally, I come to your schools and the first thing I do is to rearrange the way learners are seated. A true interpretation that the first competence in CBC is communication and collaboration, and therefore we expect learners to do things together, always seated together and doing practical work. Private schools have run away with pedagogy. You know, how exactly do we teach? Especially the fact that the teacher in the competency-based curriculum is a guide by the side and not a sage on stage. Let it not be misreported. We have gone to many, many public schools that will also shock you at one thing, and think this is where they are better than you. Public schools will shock you at how they are able to use local resources. And maybe that is one area a lot of you, Mr. Liech and team, need to rethink. In public schools, just to mention a few local resources, they will use clay, not plasticine. In public schools, they will use waste paper. They will not ask people to bring reams of paper like you do. They will draw. They will not take pictures the way you say, go home and take a picture of your family. These ones will draw their family, and you can see the features of the father, the mother, the grandfather, the way the children interpret them. These private schools will use the football that you used to call mpich ananga, football made of waste clothes and even waste bottle. There's a teacher in Dere Boys. Chairman, I wish I had time to bring her here to do a demonstration. Actually, on my phone, she is saved as CBC teacher who does extremely great things. When they even have fashion shows, the clothes of the children are made of bottle tops, they are made of waste plastic, but they come out so nicely that you first want to ask her, where are these imported from? So they have, a lot of our good public schools have demonstrated that CBC is implementable by just looking around the space you have and think about what can I use for learning. And that is one of the challenges we have as private schools. Some of us, not all, have still given the impression that CBC is expensive by the things we ask our parents to buy. And I want to encourage your parents to report to you what they may consider unreasonable requests from the school. For example, so it's okay if the government is saying buy one book, and it's okay for you to ask your teachers, if you think we need more than one text, feel free to suggest. But why do we tell parents to buy 5 books? And a lot of times when I talk to you, I think I've also mentioned that I am one of your parents because I have a child. Actually, I have 2 children in your schools. I'm on record saying that I'm not going to work so hard for this curriculum and I don't benefit directly. So I have children in school. And so when you ask me to buy the 5 books, I obey because I don't want my child to be marked. Huyu anaenda kuripoti kwa baba yake anakuja kutuambia tusinunue vitabu. But I will send somebody else behind the door. I will ask my CD here. Go and just ask, why would it be necessary for a school to ask parents to buy 5 books in one learning area, in one grade? That's something for us to think about. And if we have to buy them as a school, that is okay. For the library, maybe 5 copies. So probably we'll ask our parents to support that we are able to buy more, but for reference, maybe by the teacher or some other children, but not necessarily for children to carry. And that goes for, before I forget, especially what we call complementary books. Complementary books are books that, they're not textbooks. They are books that support teaching and learning. Some of them come in the form of revision books. And right now we have just made a decision at KICD that we shall not approve a revision book for grade 1, for grade 2, for grade 3. We'll approve a revision book for pre-primary education, for early years, grade 1, 2, 3, for upper primary and junior and maybe senior. Because this was being wasted or misused by publishers. You find that in social studies, grade 4, they have a revision book for grade 4, revision book for grade 5, revision book for grade 6. When you look at it critically, it is basically a repetition of what is featuring already in the other texts. So that's one area I want to request us to deal with. Another area that the public schools have run away with, and which is a challenge to us, is in terms of what we want to call extra work by learners and sometimes teachers. The common word for it is homework. You people looking at me still give children work that keeps them awake for the better part of the night. Again, I'll use my child as an example. The other day we were late to go home. The child was to go to school on a Monday. We had come home on a weekend. We had to wake up at 4 o'clock because this child could not accept that we have not looked at what they were asked to do. As a teacher, I look at that work and I ask the value. Why would you give a child a task for writing sentences in the opposite and you ask them to write 40 sentences over a weekend? Or on a Friday, I'm saying why you, but I know it is not you. It is the teachers we have. Or one of the problems we have been accused of is that we send work on a Friday and we want the work done on a Monday, but we have not given sufficient time for the materials. I am very happy to make an Owala with my daughter, but honestly, I can't make it in a day. I can't get that sisal in one day. By the way, I have people in Kisumu here, so I'll ask them, can you send me some sisal? And because I made Owala in school, I'll sit with my daughter and say, Mama, inatengenezwa hivi. And then we can put it together and then dance with it. And I'm able to teach my daughter a song. But if somebody asks you to do it in a day, now if you go to the streets of Nairobi, Waiyaki Way, I don't know about the streets here, you find people selling Oalo. You find people selling Orutu. Because parents have been asked, children have been asked to make them without unreasonable time. Please don't accept purchased things in your school. I went to one of your schools now in Nyanza, I'll not tell you which one. And one of your colleagues was busy showing me the resource center. But they were showing me things that have been bought, not things that the children have made. So that is one challenge that I want to pose to us. Of course, take up the challenge also of unapproved books in terms of progress. Where private schools have a challenge, and I said I would look at us in the eyes and tell us, assessment. There is too much testing in the private schools. Every week are saying we are going to do, in fact you still call them exams. And when I look at them, you know, now we have 4 types of assessment. We have assessments for learning. That assessment that is supposed to support learning. There's assessment as learning. And then now I'll mention the third one, which is assessment of learning. So for heaven's sake, you know, why are these children doing these exams? And what annoys me even most, some of those exams are bought. They are commercial. They are being produced by people who don't care much, Joma Bay, who don't care much about the curriculum. That is one thing about assessment, too much assessment. We are still ranking those children. So we still have children going home crying that I'm not number one. True or false? True. So just ask your teachers again, your head teacher to begin with, that we have rubric in every design. Maybe this design expects that learners should be able to write 5 sentences correctly using 3 forms of the verb are. The verb are comes in 5 forms. But at least I'll say 3 which are common. The first one is are itself, then there is are, then there is, and there is were. If a child now, you have given them the task to write 5 sentences, and they can write 20, and they can use other forms of the verb are, then they have exceeded expectations. In fact, even when you look at it against the expectations of curriculum designs, they are doing very well. And then we have learners who meet expectations. They have others who are approaching, almost there but not quite there yet. Then we have others which are below. And this rubric is not necessarily meant to declare or brand children. This rubric is meant to give us insight into where the child needs support. From many of your schools, and I almost ran away when one of you invited me to preside over some graduation ceremony, which involved appreciation of some learners in upper classes. And what was that? What sin was there being committed directly before me? I put myself in the shoes of God and I said, very few people will go to heaven. Now, guest of honor, we want to present to you some children who have done very well. Number 1. And I said, this is exactly what we don't want to see. So I asked myself, do I sneak away and just say I have an urgent call, which is believable because these days I can be called by anyone anyway, or do I preside over this? And do you know why? Do you know what we are committing to the other children? You are not going to award all the children. You are probably going to award 5, the best 5. We have clapped for them. You have even given them presents. Can you think about the rest of the children in this class? There is no child who is a fool. There is no child who is poor. That's why we are talking about nurturing every learner's potential. The children in CBC are like women in Luoland. There is no ugly woman in Luoland. Kosojakom. Yes. Yeah. If you are very short and the Luo man meets you, what will he call you? Hey, Adundo. Not Nyalu. Hey, Adundo ya ye. And they will sing you. If your legs are looking like somebody will mistake that they're a bit crooked, you are coming before a Luo man like Ochome here was gifted. What will they call you? Ah, Raguel. And what if you are really, really dark? Dichol. Eh? So there's no man. Even if your teeth are looking a bit chaotic, the way they have been planted, the Luos have a beautiful word for you. Hey, Rambanya. You know, that is what we expect of you. Your duty in that school, please, the duty of that teacher, to identify where every child has a potential and we nurture it. That is a challenge we have, that we are still ranking children, which is not even the bigger problem. The bigger problem is that we are stigmatizing the other children. So these, colleagues, are some of the insights we have about the progress of implementation of the competency-based curriculum. Now, let me mention a few critical matters on the progress, then I come to the senior school. President William Ruto, in his wisdom, formed a presidential working party. A presidential working party which went around the whole country. We watched as people presented to them. We, as KICD, accompanied them everywhere and actually video recorded the transactions. But most importantly, they produced a report which I want to believe each one of us has on their table. Haya, wenye wako na report ya popa, tingiza mkono, tingiza, hakuna. Wawili watatu. Please, when you go back to that school, find out, if you can't get, I'll help you get a copy of the report of the Presidential Working Party on education reforms. That is the second working party we have in this country since independence. The other one, I don't want to say reduction, and I think that should be clear to this forum. When I come out here and I catch us, I want to explain this. The Presidential Working Party was composed of many learned people, so they did not say reduce the learning areas. They said rationalize. So at pre-primary school level, the learning areas should be 5. They are still 5, just as they were. So we have language activities, we have mathematics activities, religious activities, creative activities, and environmental activities at that level. You can see, I can pick them like a prayer. The same way you expect me to say, Our Father who art in heaven, I will also be telling us that at lower primary, we said we should have 7. And then upper primary, and we are taking 7 from about 11. At upper primary, they said we should have a maximum of 8 from what were about 12. One major feature of, I think the greatest level, the level that probably had the greatest impact was junior school, where they said, let us have 9 learning areas. 2 major things happened. By the time the decision was being made and the report was out on the 1st of August 2023, that we should rationalize learning areas, we had already evaluated grade 8 books, the 14 of them, as they were earlier conceptualized. We had already commissioned publishers to publish them because these books needed to be taken to schools in that 3rd term, September to November, for use in 2024. So a lot of the books that you will find, many of your teachers have been asking us this question, will be in the shape in which the curriculum was there earlier on. So what are the rationalized learning areas at grade 8? I will count, and where we miss them, you will fill the gaps. I'm counting these because there is something important. Let's start with English. That is very important. We go through Kiswahili. In this part of the world, Oliver, it is called Oswahili. Very important. We go to religious studies, and that could be IRE or HRE or CRE, counting as one subject, number 3. Number 4, we go to integrated science, extremely critical for the learners. Number 5, we go to social studies. Number 6, we go to pre-technical studies. Number 7, we go to creative arts. Number 8, we go to agriculture and nutrition. And number 9, what have I left out? I hadn't mentioned mathematics. The main problem is in creative arts, pre-technical studies, agriculture and nutrition. Because in what today, according to the curriculum design, is creative arts, we have put together almost 5 separate learning areas. We have physical education there. We have art, fine art, or what was called art and craft. We have music, we have drama, all into creative arts. In what is pre-technical studies now, and remember, these ones had different books. There were books already for performing arts. There were books already out for physical education, and there were probably books out already for visual arts. So the question teachers are asking me is, where are the books now that are relevant to this? Now, but that is even a better question. The other question, Mr. Chome, which started on is, I thought there were clever people at KICD, led by a professor of education. How the hell Could they think that all those learning areas could be combined into one? No contradiction. We were told rationalize. So the question in the curriculum developer's mind is, there was a reason we needed knowledge, skills, and attitudes relevant to performing arts, visual arts, and physical education. Do we throw these away and only pick one and say, let's have physical education, the rest they will learn? Or we sacrifice a little of depth, go for breadth, and make sure that these children are still exposed to these broad areas of learning, albeit with a bit of integration of concepts, for two main reasons. For a lot of these learners, they will not meet those learning areas again from senior school because they will have chosen certain pathways. Yet they need a bit of that information. So that's a critical reason. But another major reason, which is academic, is that, and I want to tell you today, all learning is related. Actually, at some point I told the Presidential Working Party, if you want KICD to give you only one learning area for junior school, we will give you 40 lessons a week. And we shall call it science, because the word science simply means knowledge. But now, the challenge comes in that for children to really have enough interaction, there is a necessity to break that science initially into three: physical science, social science, then you can say applied science. Then Oliver here will tell you physical science alone will need to run with biology, chemistry, and physics. In social sciences, we need to run with religious education. We need to run with the languages. That's where we shall be running with geography and history and so on. So, all this knowledge, somebody talked about it. In your head, it is just knowledge. Nobody has said, ukienda kwa ile kona ingine utapata science there. So, we said, fine. There is a way in which that learning area, creative arts, can have elements of those other matters put together and learners can learn it successfully. As a teacher, a young diploma graduate teacher in 1990 from Siriba here, Maseno down here, I was already conscious that even as I teach English language, I know that out there exists books in writing, books in reading, books in grammar, where I can fetch knowledge for my learners, as long as I have what we are calling then the syllabus. So as long as the teacher is armed with the curriculum design, they can fish knowledge from a book that came to them as performing arts, a book that came to them as visual arts, a book that came to them as physical studies, and then they are able to teach. However, as a matter of progress, as I talk to us now, the grade 9 books for the rationalized learning areas that they are out. KICD is on the tail end of making corrections, because after we have evaluated these books and told them the book has met the threshold, I mentioned percentages earlier on, it is still our responsibility to make sure that the book meets 100%, as perfect as humanly possible. So they are out. You will be able to, if you've come across any book now purporting to be a grade 9 book in creative arts, in performing arts, that book is not yet approved. Because, and I hope you don't have them, because as far as I'm concerned, we are going to start distributing these books in October, and the publishers have not started printing, because I must give them a letter saying you can now print. So again, if somebody sells to you a book for grade 8, in those areas I've mentioned, for grade 7, it is fake. It is not yet approved. Wait until sometime in March when the books will be out. But we have evaluated books for grade 5 and grade 6 and grade 4 in the rationalized learning areas. So those ones, again, the publishers are doing corrections now. I expect that by January they should be ready. If somebody sells you a book like that, it will be okay. that a book's life, according to the KICD standards, is 4 years. So the government is replacing the books that we distributed in 2019 for grade 4, in 2018 for grade 3, and earlier on for grade 1. 1, 2, 3, we have new books according to the rationalized curriculum designs. 4, 5, 6, a complete set of new books which we shall be distributing. So feel free when the books are out, and feel free to consult us through your chair here. Are the books, correct books now out? And buy the new editions of those books. Colleagues, take this away. As far as the government is concerned, today, the 26th of September, the year of the Lord 2024, grade 9 shall be housed in primary schools. Grade 9 shall be domiciled in primary schools. So, I am in charge of distribution of books. I've told you we are doing this from October. I have already got a list of all our public primary schools where we are taking these books to from October. I have not been advised to take them to secondary schools. Yes, that is important. But for private schools, again, this needs to be underscored, that domiciling is not space. For public schools, it matters because we are saying Oneno Primary School, where I went to, and where I'm busy building a grade 9 class, the grade 9 shall be there. For private schools, if you have a secondary school that you are running, physically there is nothing wrong with you situating a class within that compound and giving them the right teachers. We are talking about learning area. We are not talking about, you can go to a university and establish a pre-primary school there. Does that make it a university? So it is not necessarily about the physical space. For government, because of access, we are saying that the grade 9 class will be within the space of the primary school compound. So, as far as the government is concerned, as of today, the grade 9 class is still domiciled in primary schools. However, we plead with us to make sure that we have the right teachers teaching the learning areas, because ideally, the learning areas for grade 9, 7, and 8 are intended to be facilitated by teachers who qualify to teach secondary schools. The one thing that still worries us a bit, which again is okay in the context of change, is that pedagogy, and I think I came and found Mr. Okoyo talking about teaching and learning, is still quite a bit leaning towards the teacher-centeredness. This is something we want to help ourselves to do together. Please, in your schools, the children pay fees. They don't pay fees to hear the voice of the teacher. They pay fees to learn. The person who has paid fees to learn is the child, not the teacher. So tell the teacher and walk around. If you are in your school and you hear the teacher's voice for 10 minutes continuously the way you are hearing mine, tell them there's no learning taking place. Can these learners do? Which takes me to 5 things that I want to emphasize, and I go to senior school very quickly. Please remember this anytime you are talking to your teachers. And just in case I forget, invite us if you want, as a group of schools, as an individual school, if you want us to still come in and give you insight on teaching and learning. Remember to cling to 5 things about CBC. 5 great features that distinguishes or are intended to distinguish CBC from what we are calling 844. If one of them is not working, you know you are still in 844. 1, learning must be interesting. One of the reasons we are reforming the curriculum is that we realize children were getting bored, some getting depressed, competition is too high against other children, which is not what they go to school. Learning must be interesting, and interesting, especially as we start getting to junior school, means also an opportunity to identify what exactly are they interested in doing. 2, learning must be experiential. You don't talk to me about a learning area without giving me some examples from my immediate life which I can attribute to that which I'm learning. For example, if I'm a teacher of mathematics, I have talked about subtraction or taking away, division, and so on. Are you able to give me where I can apply that knowledge on a weekend? Linking learning to the immediate experiences around them in their day-to-day life. 3, make learning as practical as possible. Number 4, please insist on the values. I know some of you I'm not going to mention, but I'll mention a public school so that it doesn't look like I'm favoring any of you. You have got to go see here and see what the children are able to do with a band. Jumapili osekochopo koradhisi kula sumbi anyanga mioriti. Those children can go anywhere in the world, entertain, and earn money. They are already beginning to connect that I can go to school and get this. In a school called Kobala, down here on the route to Mawego, we have children who are playing for the Harambee Starlets, and they were nurtured down there. So I really pray that, Mr. Chome, there's no person among us who still tells children that, these things will not take you anywhere. Hii drama kurukaruka na hii kwenda uwanjani haitakupeleka mahali. You go and do science. I hope na kama uko hapa na wewe bado unahubiri hiyo mambo, ushindwe kabisa. Just to repeat, remember that junior school is expected to expose our children to a range of areas of knowledge, a range of competencies to enable them to make a choice when they go to senior school. Already the Kenya National Examinations Council has piloted some instrument where children indicate areas of preference, and it is working. Children are already clear in their mind, they want to go to STEM. STEM means science, technology, and mathematics. Children are already deciding, I want to go to arts and sports. Children are already deciding, I want to go to social studies. So now, sticking with those 3 pathways, the advice I want to give you, I'm home, so I want to steal to you some secret. I want to cut for you cleverness. The projection of the government, and therefore the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, is that 60% of our children should go into STEM. 25% should go into social studies. And then 15% at senior school should go into the arts and sports. So an ideal way of looking at it is that if you are running a senior school, we expect you to admit 60% children in STEM, 60% children in, 25 in social studies, and 15 in arts and sports. That's a cheap way of looking at it. But that is where you people start to cut what is called your niche. You can decide, I'll start with an easy option, that I will run a senior school where my emphasis is simply arts and sports. 90% of the learners I'll have will go into arts and sports. You can even call your school Charles Ochome School of Arts, Senior School of Arts and Sports. Because I can tell you, these are areas that other schools may not start to think about investing in, not because they are expensive, but because maybe they have not taken time to study them, and I'll come back to that in a short while. So, what will happen, as I talk today, unless there are any changes, we shall have 4 compulsory learning areas. These are, and I'll give this presentation to the chairman, then he can circulate, but from my mouth, these are physical education. We have got some powerful feedback on that area, so it might change in terms of name, but there'll be some element of physical education. Community service learning, English language, Kiswahili language. So if you're planning in terms of teachers, you must invest heavily in teachers of English, heavily teachers of Kiswahili. Community service learning, let me explain it in a minute, basically is an experience of what the children learn at school within the community space for two reasons: to extend the children's learning, but also to contribute to something in the community. So if you are in the arts space, you have taught your children elocution, and you have packaged some powerful message for the community against early pregnancies, against female genital mutilation, against environmental degradation. Children can take this message to the community by way of drama, by way of elocution, and then they are able to say, have we passed some important information to the children, the parents? How have the parents responded? The geography children can go, and agriculture can go to the village and just aid my mama and my baba in terms of modern, better methods of farming. So we expect that the community service learning, there will be no one teacher called a teacher of community service learning. Every teacher in that school will be socialized on how they can link their learning to experiences in the community that they will take to the children to at least once in every year. So that should not worry you. Physical education, yes, I'm a teacher of physical education myself, because when I went to Sariba, physical education was compulsory. And the main areas are not neurological sciences. We still did ball games, we still did athletics, we did gymnastics, we did wellness. So take the teachers through these so that at least 5 of your teachers can comfortably take the learners in that school into physical education. Then invite known physical education facilitators in this country. Some universities still produce them. If you don't have that list, we can give to you. Because, you know,